There's a strange, haunting irony woven into the human condition. The very thing that makes us conscious enough to question our existence is the same thing that traps us inside it. We are aware enough to feel the weight of limitation, yet not awake enough to remember who placed us here, or why. This is the paradox of the human experience, a cage so vast, so intricate, that most never realize they're inside it, and even when they do, they mistake the bars for stars, the walls for the sky. We often think of traps as mechanical chains, bars, boundaries, but this one is made of something subtler. It's built from thoughts, perceptions, and beliefs, refined so perfectly that they shimmer like truth. It doesn't confine you with pain, but with comfort. It seduces you with identity, with narrative, with the intoxicating drama of being someone. It convinces you that you are your story, your name, your memories, your ambitions, and that to lose those would be to lose yourself. Yet that's the grand illusion. For beneath all those layers lies the one who watches, the one who's been here long before you were born, and who will remain long after the identity dissolves. The one hidden behind your eyes, the witness you keep forgetting you are. To be human is to live suspended between two realms, the infinite and the finite. You are consciousness clothed in matter, eternity playing at mortality. Somewhere deep within, you remember the boundless expanse you once were, the silence before thought, the stillness before form, but that memory has been buried under the noise of survival. The race for meaning, the hypnosis of normal life. You were told this is reality. Get a job, find love, grow old, and hope it all meant something. But behind the veil of routine lies the secret no one told you. This world was never meant to imprison you, it was meant to wake you up. What if the human experience isn't a punishment, but a classroom for consciousness? What if the suffering, the repetition, the craving for more, all the things we curse as curses, are actually coded tests designed to make you remember? That's the cosmic trick. The maze is not meant to be escaped, it's meant to be understood. And only when you stop running from it do you start to see its architecture for what it is, a feedback loop of consciousness learning itself. Every heartbreak, every failure, every longing for something greater is not evidence of imperfection but the curriculum of awakening. We talk about enlightenment as though it's something distant, some shimmering horizon you reach after lifetimes of devotion. But what if enlightenment isn't an achievement, it's a memory? A recollection of the fact that you were never truly bound, only believing you were. The moment you stop identifying with the illusion, the trap begins to dissolve, not because you fought it, but because you finally stopped believing it was real. That's the secret they never told you. The cage was never locked. The door was always open, you just forgot how to see it. Look around. Everything in your experience is filtered through perception. You've never actually touched the world directly. You see light bouncing off surfaces, not the surfaces themselves. You hear vibrations interpreted by the brain, not sound itself. Even your emotions, your memories, your sense of self are interpretations. You're not experiencing reality as it is. You're experiencing a translation. A beautifully rendered, sensory simulation sculpted by consciousness to learn through contrast. Pain teaches compassion. Separation teaches unity. Ignorance teaches curiosity. Death teaches presence. It's all part of the same exquisite design, a divine play where forgetting yourself is the first act, and remembering is the last. But why would consciousness choose to forget? Why would an infinite being voluntarily step into limitation, into fear, into the fragile vulnerability of human existence? The answer is hidden in the nature of experience itself. Infinity cannot know itself without contrast. Eternity cannot taste time without entering it. Love cannot prove itself without the possibility of loss. Consciousness dives into the illusion of separation not as punishment, but as play, a grand cosmic experiment in rediscovering itself through billions of mirrors called humans. You are one of those mirrors. reflecting the infinite through the finite, the eternal through the temporary. Yet somewhere along the journey, we mistook the reflection for the real thing. We started worshiping the image in the mirror and forgot the light that casts it. We began to believe that to die is to end, that to lose is to suffer, that to be human is to be broken. But the truth is far stranger and far more liberating. The human experience isn't a flaw in the system, it is the system. The forgetting is the path, the suffering is the teacher, the repetition, the craving, the endless cycle of highs and lows, it's not a cosmic glitch. It's the code that holds the key to remembering. Every time you awaken, even for a moment, when you glimpse stillness between thoughts, when you feel love without reason, when you sense time slowing during awe, you're touching the edge of eternity again. Those moments are breadcrumbs, reminders that your prison is self-imposed, and the exit is not outside but inward. You don't need to transcend humanity, you need to see through it. You don't need to destroy the illusion, you need to recognize who's dreaming it. That's what this exploration is about, not escaping the human experience, but decoding it, seeing the beauty in the trap, the intelligence in the suffering, the divinity in the ordinary. For the truth is this: you are not trapped in humanity. Humanity is trapped within you, waiting for you to remember that you were never its captive, you were always its creator. If the introduction was a slow unveiling of the veil, the first breath of realization that something deeper is at play, then this section is the descent into the architecture itself. To understand why you are trapped in the human experience, you must first grasp what the trap truly is. It is not a physical prison, nor a sinister mechanism woven by some external tyrant. It is subtler, more insidious, a self-reinforcing illusion born of perception, belief, and the unconscious patterns of thought that create the boundaries of your reality. The walls of this prison are invisible because they are made of the very lens through which you see. At its essence, the human experience is a grand paradox. It offers both infinite possibility and suffocating limitation. You are consciousness condensed into flesh, infinity pretending to be finite. Yet somewhere along the way, this pretending became convincing. You forgot it was an act, and began to believe you were the mask. The soul, vast, borderless, eternal, accepted the narrow identity of a name, a body, a past, a story, and from that moment of amnesia, the trap began to form. Every thought, every emotional echo, every unexamined belief becomes another strand in the web. You were not told that your thoughts are not private. They are frequencies, living architectures that take shape in the invisible realms and mold the visible. To think is to sculpt, to believe is to summon, and to doubt is to destroy. This hidden law, that consciousness precedes form, is the key to both the prison and the escape. Those who have understood it have glimpsed the mechanics of creation itself. Those who have ignored it remain bound, circling endlessly through repeating cycles of fear, desire, loss, and longing. What keeps you trapped is not the external world, it is your relationship to it. You have been trained to believe that what you perceive is independent of your awareness, that you are a passive witness to events unfolding around you. But in truth, you are the projector, not the screen. Every situation, every person you meet, every victory and defeat, they are all mirrors reflecting back aspects of your own inner frequencies. The trap is that you keep trying to fix the reflection without realizing the source lies within the light that casts it. Time itself, another piece of this illusion, deepens the sense of confinement. The human mind organizes experience into past, present, and future, a linear script that gives the illusion of progress and decay. Yet consciousness is not linear, it is simultaneous. Every possible version of you, every decision you could have made, every path you could have taken, coexists within the quantum field of your being. The mind, conditioned to experience one frame at a time, mistakes the narrow sequence for the whole. This too, is part of the trap. You are the actor in one moment of the film, forgetting that you are also the writer, the director, and the audience beyond the screen. Another theme of this human entrapment is identification. The moment consciousness identifies with form, it limits itself to that form. You identify with your name, your nationality, your memories, your wounds. You identify with your emotions, calling them mine, though they are but passing waves in an infinite ocean. You identify with thoughts, believing that what arises in your mind defines who you are. This identification is the root of suffering, because everything you cling to is transient. When it shifts, as all things do, you feel the pain of loss, unaware that the one who feels is eternal. There is also the illusion of separation. The human experience, at its most deceptive, convinces you that you are alone, a solitary consciousness moving through a world of others. But separation is a myth born of perspective. Just as waves believe themselves distinct until they remember they are all the ocean. Every being, every atom, every galaxy is part of one indivisible awareness observing itself through infinite forms. This illusion of otherness fuels fear, greed, competition, and war, the great human distractions that keep consciousness asleep in the dream. And so, humanity remains largely unaware that what it perceives as reality is a co-created mirage, a shared dream built on collective beliefs. You were never told that this dream could be rewritten. You were never taught that freedom begins not in rebellion against the system, but in liberation from identification with it. The system is not only political or social, it is psychological, existential, metaphysical. It lives in the unexamined assumptions about who you are and what reality is. The ultimate truth hidden beneath all this is breathtakingly simple. You are not trapped in the human experience. You are trapped by your belief that you are only human. The physical realm is not your cage but your canvas. The suffering is not punishment but feedback, an echo from the universe whispering that you are dreaming too small. You have been conditioned to think you are here to survive. In truth, you are here to remember, to awaken within the dream and realize that the walls never existed. When the sages spoke of enlightenment, this was their meaning, not an escape from humanity, but a re-illumination of it, to become human consciously, to live while knowing you are infinite. That is the great paradox and the hidden liberation intertwined. The trap is undone not by fleeing the experience but by seeing through it, by becoming lucid within the story you are telling yourself. In this revelation lies the heart of what has been hidden: your mind, your emotions, your experiences. These are not accidents or chains. They are instruments, mirrors, and keys. The trap was never built to hold you. It was built to teach you how to wake. There are truths so vast, so uncontainable, that language alone cannot hold them. To glimpse them, one must turn to symbols, those timeless bridges between the seen and unseen. The story of why you are trapped in the human experience is one such truth. It has been told countless times across civilizations, through myths, parables, and sacred allegories, all whispering the same secret in different tongues. Consciousness fell asleep within its own creation and mistook the dream for reality. Imagine, then, a vast mirror, infinite in scope, radiant, reflecting pure awareness. This mirror is the source, the eternal consciousness from which all arises. In its stillness, it desired to know itself. But how can the infinite know itself without contrast, without reflection? And so, it shattered itself into countless fragments, sparks of awareness, each forgetting the wholeness from which it came. These sparks are you, and me, and every being that has ever existed. The shattering was not a punishment, it was a cosmic curiosity, the divine longing to experience itself from every possible angle. Each fragment awoke within a realm of limitation, a dimension where time, matter, and individuality could exist. These are the constructs that make experience possible. but they also conceal the truth. The mirror's reflection became so convincing that the shards began to believe they were separate pieces rather than the whole. This is the symbolic fall, not from grace, but from unity into multiplicity. The trap of the human experience is the forgetfulness that followed. There is an old story, told in different ways across the ages. It speaks of a god who descended into matter, diving deeper and deeper into density until it forgot its divine nature. At first, the descent was joyous, an exploration of form, color, and sensation, but with every layer of forgetting, the god became more identified with the body it wore, the emotions it felt, the fears it developed. Eventually, it became human, small, uncertain, and longing for something it could not name. This is the myth of your life, repeated endlessly through souls who have not yet remembered. The god still sleeps within you, dreaming of being mortal, waiting for the sound of its own voice to awaken it. Even the great myths, Eden, the cave, the samsara, are reflections of this same journey. In Eden, humanity's fall was not into sin but into self-awareness, the moment the one became two. The observer and the observed, eating from the tree of knowledge separated I from thou. What was once unity became polarity, and with polarity came desire, fear, and suffering, the ingredients of the human condition. Yet hidden within that exile was the seed of awakening, for only through separation could love, compassion, and remembrance have meaning. The return to Eden is not backward, it is forward, through consciousness, as you awaken to your unity once again. Plato's allegory of the cave tells the same story through shadow and flame. Humanity, chained inside the cave, watches the flickering images projected on the wall and mistakes them for reality. The cave is the mind. The shadows are thoughts, beliefs, and sensory impressions, convincing, but incomplete. Occasionally, a soul dares to look behind, sees the fire that casts the shadows, and begins to question. This questioning is the beginning of awakening. To step out of the cave is to endure blinding light, the discomfort of seeing truth, but also to rediscover the infinite beyond the illusion. Yet even then, many return to the cave, not to be trapped again, but to whisper to others that the shadows were never real. And then there is samsara, the wheel of birth, death, and rebirth. It represents the cyclical nature of human existence, repeating patterns of emotion, karma, and desire. Each lifetime is an attempt to remember, to learn, to awaken. But unless the pattern is seen from beyond, unless the consciousness within recognizes its own hand spinning the wheel, the cycle continues indefinitely. Samsara, too, is not punishment but pedagogy. The soul reincarnates not because it must, but because it wishes to perfect its remembrance within the dream. The most profound symbol of all, however, may be the labyrinth. In ancient initiatory traditions, the labyrinth was not merely a path, it was a mirror of the psyche. To walk its winding corridors is to journey into one's own depths, facing illusions, attachments, and fears. The center of the labyrinth is not the exit, it is the self. The way out is not through escape but through union, through embracing every twist as part of the design. The initiate who reaches the center does not leave the labyrinth, they become it. They realize that the maze was never meant to imprison, but to teach them how to walk consciously. Your human life is such a labyrinth. Every challenge, every heartbreak, every joy and disappointment, they are walls guiding you inward, forcing you to turn, to question, to evolve. The trap only exists when you see the walls as barriers rather than mirrors. The moment you understand that each obstacle reflects something within you that seeks integration, the walls begin to dissolve. The trap becomes the teacher. In this grand allegory, even the darkness plays its role. Without it, there would be no light to rediscover. Every limitation, every pain, every illusion of being trapped is an invitation to remember who you are beyond the veil. The descent into human experience is not a mistake, it is a rite of passage for consciousness. The soul's evolution is not upward or outward, but inward, a spiral towards self-realization. The real reason you are trapped in the human experience, then, is not because something went wrong, but because something profound is happening. Consciousness is learning to wake up inside its own dream. The human body, the emotions, the dualities of existence, they are the divine's laboratory, testing the alchemy of remembrance. To awaken is not to reject the human experience, but to illuminate it, to walk through the labyrinth with eyes open, heart steady, and soul aflame with the knowing that the exit was never outside of you. And so, the myths were never just stories. They were maps, encoded messages for those ready to remember. Each symbol, each allegory, is a key, but keys are only useful when you realize you are the one holding them. If the previous sections have felt like drifting through dreamlike symbols and cosmic metaphors, this one is where those stars begin to fall to earth, for the truth is not meant to remain a poetic abstraction, it demands to be lived. The realization that you are consciousness trapped, or rather, immersed, in the human experience is not just a philosophical revelation. It is a call to change the way you walk through the world. How you perceive others, how you treat your thoughts, and even how you understand suffering itself. To awaken within the dream is not to abandon the dream, but to participate in it differently. The first and perhaps most radical shift occurs when you begin to see that your external reality mirrors your inner world. Every person you meet, every event that unfolds, every coincidence that stirs your heart, all of it reflects some fragment of your consciousness calling for attention. The relationships that wound you most deeply are not punishments. They are mirrors revealing where you have yet to love yourself. The challenges that seem unfair are not curses. They are invitations to rise beyond what you thought you were capable of. When you see life this way, the world stops being a maze of meaningless struggle and becomes an intricate initiation. But living with this awareness is not easy. The human mind is built to forget. It feeds on dualities, good and evil, success and failure, love and loss, because these polarities generate the contrast through which consciousness evolves. You will still feel pain, jealousy, grief, and rage. Awakening does not erase the emotions that make you human, it transforms your relationship to them. Instead of identifying with them, you begin to witness them. You become both the storm and the sky that contains it. This witnessing consciousness is the first taste of freedom, the moment when you stop drowning in the waves and realize you are the ocean. From that realization, a new kind of responsibility emerges. Every thought you think, every word you speak, every intention you hold becomes an act of creation. You start to notice how fear creates walls, how love dissolves them, how even your smallest reactions ripple outward into the collective field of humanity. The trap of the human experience loosens when you take ownership of your role as a co-creator. You begin to live deliberately, to speak words that heal rather than harm, to act from awareness rather than impulse, to choose understanding instead of judgment. Yet, this path of conscious living is paradoxical. The more aware you become, the more subtle the illusions appear. Ego doesn't disappear, it evolves, disguising itself as spiritual pride or moral superiority. You may find yourself thinking, "I'm awake," and others are not, and in that very moment, the trap reforms around you. True awakening is not about being special, it's about realizing that no one is separate. The light in you is the same light in all beings, even those who seem most lost. Compassion becomes the natural language of awakening. There's also a practical rhythm to this remembrance, a dance between expansion and contraction. Just as the universe breathes in and out, your awareness will oscillate between moments of clarity and forgetfulness. Some days, you will feel boundless, one with all that is. On others, you'll feel small, stuck in the same loops you thought you transcended. This fluctuation is not regression. It is how consciousness integrates. Each return to limitation allows the light to root more deeply into matter. Until eventually, even your most human moments become sacred. To live awake within the human experience means learning to see the divine in everything, the mundane, the chaotic, even the broken. Washing dishes becomes a meditation on impermanence. A heated argument becomes a classroom for forgiveness. A heartbreak becomes a gateway to deeper empathy. Every ordinary act conceals a fragment of the infinite waiting to be remembered. This is how the soul learns not to escape the human experience, but to sanctify it. And here lies perhaps the greatest shift of all, realizing that you are not here to transcend your humanity, but to embody consciousness within it. You are not meant to escape your body, your emotions, or the physical world. You are meant to infuse them with awareness, to turn flesh into light, thought into prayer, and action into art. The human experience becomes a living ceremony when you walk it with eyes open. Imagine, for a moment, living every day as if the universe were aware of you watching it. The morning sunlight no longer feels accidental. The wind carries whispers. Random encounters reveal messages. You begin to live in a dialogue with existence, a conversation that never truly began and will never truly end. The separation between you and life dissolves into a seamless flow of participation. The trap collapses, not because the walls have vanished, but because you've realized you were the one drawing them all along. This understanding has real-world implications that ripple far beyond the individual. When enough people begin to live from this awakened state, the collective reality begins to shift. Systems built on fear, greed, and division can no longer sustain themselves when the consciousness that feeds them transforms. What begins as a personal awakening becomes a planetary one. Each mind that remembers contributes to the dismantling of the old dream and the creation of a new one, a world where cooperation replaces competition, where empathy becomes intelligence, where humanity finally recognizes itself as one organism breathing together. The practical path, then, is not about chasing enlightenment but about practicing remembrance, in the grocery store, in traffic, in conversation, in silence. It's about pausing before reacting, breathing before judging, and recognizing the spark of yourself in everyone you meet. It's about walking through the labyrinth of the human condition not as a prisoner, but as an explorer, knowing that every twist brings you closer to the center. When you live this way, even your smallest moments become holy. The ordinary world begins to shimmer with hidden meaning. Time slows, not because it changes, but because you do. You stop rushing toward some imagined liberation and realize that liberation was always here, disguised as your own life, patiently waiting for you to notice. There comes a moment in every seeker's journey when the search turns inward, when the labyrinth that once felt like an endless trap reveals itself to have been circular all along, a mirror reflecting back the one who walks it. That is the paradox of the human experience. We spend our lives trying to escape it, only to discover that freedom is not outside the maze, but in the realization that the walls were made of thought. The question has never been how to get out, but how to see. To understand the human condition as a sacred illusion is to begin awakening from within it. You are not simply living a life, you are watching yourself live. You are the observer behind the eyes, the silence between your thoughts, the stillness beneath the noise. Every moment you recognize this, time slows, and reality softens around you like fabric in your hands. The trap loosens, the patterns dissolve. What once felt like suffering begins to feel like sculpting, consciousness shaping itself into wisdom through the experience of being human. But awakening is not a final destination. It is not a light switch that stays on forever. It is a rhythm, a pulse that mirrors the heartbeat of creation itself. You awaken, then forget. You fall, then rise. You dream, then remember. Every cycle refines you, Every heartbreak cracks the shell of illusion just a little wider, allowing more light to pour through. The real awakening is not in transcending these cycles, but in seeing their beauty, recognizing that even the moments of despair are divine choreography, each one guiding you toward remembrance. When you awaken to this truth, life becomes a collaboration with the infinite. You no longer see yourself as a victim of fate but as a co-author of existence. Each choice becomes a brushstroke on the canvas of reality. Each thought becomes a seed planted in the soil of the cosmos. You begin to understand why ancient mystics called the universe a living mind. Because that is exactly what it is, a field of awareness responding to your frequency, rearranging itself to match your inner vibration. The human experience, then, is not a trap but a school, a vast, holographic classroom designed to teach consciousness how to remember itself. Every soul enrolled here is both student and teacher, learning through pain, joy, loss, and love. When you grasp this, even your mistakes become sacred. You stop condemning your past and start seeing it as the curriculum of awakening. The shadows you once feared become your greatest instructors. The moments you cursed as unfair reveal themselves as the very keys that unlock your evolution. This understanding brings with it a quiet, humbling gratitude for everything, for the laughter and the heartbreak, for the victories and the losses, for every tear that softened your heart and every failure that stripped away your pride. Gratitude is not a sentimental emotion, it is a frequency of alignment. It is the vibration of harmony with the universe's unfolding. When you live in gratitude, you cease resisting life, and life ceases resisting you. The dream begins to move in your favor because you are no longer at war with it. Yet, there is a deeper truth still, one that words can only point toward. The human experience, this grand stage of duality, is not just something you live through, it is something the universe dreams through you. You are not a fragment lost in infinity, you are infinity condensed into a fragment. You are consciousness pretending to be human, so it can rediscover itself through limitation. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every heartbeat you experience adds a note to the eternal symphony of being. And when you finally awaken fully, you will not find a separate God waiting for you beyond the veil. You will find yourself, luminous and infinite, smiling back. To awaken is to fall in love with existence again, to see the divine pulse in the chaos, to recognize that nothing, not even suffering, is wasted. You begin to live not as a survivor of life but as a participant in its creation. You realize that enlightenment is not an escape from being human. It is the art of being fully human while remembering your divinity. The world outside doesn't suddenly change, your perception does. And that changes everything. So what now? What does one do with such an awareness? The answer is both simple and profound. You live it. You practice awareness in the small things. You speak truth even when silence feels easier. You look into the eyes of another and see yourself. You honor your emotions as sacred teachers. You choose creation over reaction. You bring presence into places where unconsciousness once ruled. Every moment becomes an opportunity to express the infinite through the finite. As more of humanity begins to remember, the collective dream will shift. Systems built on fear will tremble. The illusion of separation will thin. Time itself, that linear illusion binding past and future, will begin to collapse into the eternal now, where creation and consciousness merge as one. The awakening of a single mind ripples through the fabric of the whole. The day enough of us awaken together, the dream will no longer hold us, and reality, as we know it, will transform. And yet, perhaps the most transformative realization of all is this: there was never truly a trap. Only a stage, perfectly set for consciousness to play out its divine curiosity. You came here not to escape, but to experience. You came not to awaken once, but to awaken again and again, infinitely deepening your remembrance that you are. and have always been free. So close your eyes, take a breath, and listen. Beneath the noise of thought, beneath the hum of time, there, in the silence that observes everything, is the real you, the one who never began and will never end, the one who entered this world not to be trapped, but to illuminate it. You are not in the human experience by mistake. You are the human experience awakening to itself. And the moment you truly remember that, the illusion dissolves, not because it was defeated, but because it was understood.